All right. Welcome back. I had to do the thing. Welcome back to issue 2, Supergirl. Last issue was a longer episode. It was very fun. I think that these episodes are going to be a little bit longer with Supergirl. I really do like these ones, so I'm spending a lot more time on them to just go over everything. But to recap what happened last time, basically this little girl named Ruthie had her father get murdered by this guy named Krem of the Yellow Hills. She goes to meet a bounty hunter. Bounty hunter says no, steals her stuff. Supergirl saves her. Also wants nothing to do with Ruthie either, but just helps her. And then the guy shoots a bunch of arrows into Crypto, Supergirl, and takes their spaceship, leaving their objectives aligned to go stop Krem of the Yellow Hills. So with that, let's hop in. Let's not skip a minute. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Yeah. The rock farm on which I was born, weaned, and raised was not by any measure a well-perfumed environment. Between the animals and my 6 dear brothers, a fusty bouquet of dung and sweat often sat heavily in the air. And it seems like we're inside of this train station as a guy is sleeping on top of Ruthie. And she's like, "Excuse me, sir, excuse me." Bathing was once a harvest day affair with all 7 of us taking turns, going one after the other into a small rusted cistern. Being the youngest of my brood, I was sent last into the water, which was brick brown by the time I entered its chilly depths. In terms of cleanliness, the results of often were routine at best. Once a year, my treasured father would take us into the city for high fare, and we would giggle at the pampered city folk, tucking their noses as our family passed. They were accustomed of the musk and of authentic work, we'd say, noting with some gratification of how our stench marked us as the rooted heart of our Kingsland. She's just reliving a good memory with her father. All of which was to say, when I informed you that I could no longer tolerate the putrid smell of this guy raining up on me, I am not contrasting it to a spoiled childhood awash with rosed lather as she pushes the guy off of her, and we see the setting. Welcome to the train station in New York City, I guess. This guy's just like looking at her, like, "What are you doing, sir? I'm embarked on a long and tedious journey. I need you to get away from me." Essentially, that just to sum that up. There's people kissing on the train, people playing trumpets, yada yada yada. Yeah, and then Supergirl, of course, is asleep in the corner. And the man looks at her and is like, You're tasty. I'm going to eat you." So how did they get here? Well, they have no spaceship, and so they got to track down Krem some other way. They're just going to public transportation. I do like that aliens got to get around somehow. In DC, some of these aliens are way more sophisticated than Earth, even though Earth is the center of the multiverse, I believe, because the universe is the center of, or the center of the universe is Oa. And so this man saying that she's going to eat Ruth, or he's going to eat Ruthie, Ruthie looks at him and is like, I have Supergirl. Supergirl is seated right next to you. And so he looks over and is like, "That girl, she's asleep." And this is what I was talking about. The people don't really know Supergirl. They know Superman. As Ruthie goes and explains, "You're not acquainted with your point of origin, so please forgive my possible misconception of your tone." And points at her and is like, "That woman alongside you, her cousin Superman, of whom you may have heard, is one of the last survivors of Krypton. As such, she is in possession of nearly unconceivable power. Moreover, she has lived a life of battle and woe that's forged her into a ferocious, forgiving fighter." And tells the man, "Just don't even start anything, because she's going to take you down." And so he just goes back to sleep. And she puts her hood up. "Thank you." Staring at the window, I would like to say I had some satisfaction from exchange, but in truth, there was no grand victory to be had. Though I do concede relief that he was no longer touching me, the smell associated either with him or the entire vessel, I could say at that time, not swear to which it was, and had yet to discover it was both, remained. To distract myself from the ongoing olfactory assault, I let my thoughts drift to then favorite fantasy. I saw before me Krem of the Yellow Hills on his knees, his hands clutched, begging my mercy. Her favorite little thing to daydream is just killing this opposition. And this is where I love galaxy art, beautiful stuff like this, where it's just a mix of shades of colors and then just a little specks of white to signify the stars. They're so good. Moon Knight 2016 has a lot of that. And we see that, yeah, this is just a spaceship bus, kind of. And then we see the station that it's docked at, giving them a 15-minute window to go and do whatever they want, but they gotta come back eventually. As Supergirl wakes up, "Can you feel it, Ruthie? We're getting closer. The stars are changing." And they go and get something to eat and sits at what I could only describe as an airport bar, basically, and is like, oh my goodness, I'll take a drink. The kid will take some food. And then a man walks up to him and is like, excuse me, ma'am. Rain Canyon back there says you're Supergirl. Are you really Supergirl? And points a gun at her. See, Superman put 2 of my brothers in the Phantom Zone, and I swore revenge on him and his family from that day forward. So if you're Supergirl, I gotta kill you. And that's what it is. It's like they don't really recognize Supergirl, but they recognize the symbol and they recognize Superman. And Ruthie tells us, yeah, they went on this travel for months. This is a months-long trip for them. She says, yeah, these types of encounters happened all the time. Wherever we went, it seems to me we went most of the places there are to go in this bewitching universe. There's some cantankerous fellow who had some problem at some juncture in his life with Superman. And apparently the people did not want to take on Superman, the Man of Steel. So they would go after his distaff cousin, their chests puffed with eagerly renewed pluck, believing that, hey, we can't take on this guy, but we can take on her cousin, or his cousin, I mean. And Supergirl's like, well, if I'm not wearing a big yellow on my chest and this very fashionable red skirt, so if I'm not Supergirl, and just looks at the man and says, then who do you think I am? As she just kicks the dude and he smashes onto the bar table, just getting knocked out. I spent enough time with Supergirl to know her better than most, maybe better than all. If the truth be told, so let me say with some manner of expertise that she was a woman of disparate qualities who bent her own sense of self to fit the situation, which is, say in a simpler manner, it is true. She was many things to many people, but she was never soft. And so Ruthie tells us, yeah, during these adventures, I'm going to leave out some of these, but this is just one encounter. She's not going to talk about all these encounters because Ruthie is writing like a story about this whole adventure. So also take that in mind and how much of this is actually real? Is this all just a story? And I do like that aspect is like how much of it is just glazing Supergirl for zero reason. And so Supergirl's like, how long have we been here? Do you know what a Zermit is? We gotta go. Let's just leave. And so they dip. And this is what I'm talking about. Oh my God, look at this beautiful imagery. There's so many canvases that I want around my apartment, my house, that I can just put up that look beautiful, just beautiful scenery. And honestly, take the time out of your day. Just appreciate artists. We'll just stop right here. Appreciate artists. I don't like AI art. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't really care for AI, but this is beautiful. We continued on, and the weeks pressed in much the same fashion. Our dual enemies of Tedium and Malador were met each hour, and if not outright defeated, at least occasionally brought to bay. I must admit, betwixt the two of us, very little conversation was to be had. We knew our destination. We knew we were engaged in a test of endurance, and we did not wish to amplify the situation by commenting upon it. Or at least that was my assumption at the time. Eventually, we became accustomed to the routine, and we were both shocked when during a stop at the Novox rest station, the driver paged Supergirl and begged for her help. We're all gonna die, he said with no intention of hyperbole. And so why are they going to die? Because that beautiful thing that's outside is actually a dragon. And the man tells him, it's like, that's a dragon? It's a Carpain dragon. They patrol the West Galaxies eating anything metal. Newsflash, buddy, this whole ship is made out of metal. The people inside are here. And so Supergirl's like, that's a bummer. That really sucks. Yeah, it is, but can you do something about it? Save the day? Maybe. Problem is I just spent a lot of time on a planet with the wrong sun. I was just there for my birthday. My dog got shot. I'm really not charged to do this. Oh, bummer. And so Supergirl goes and thinks of an inventive idea, walks into a shuttle and is like, who's got reds? We'll learn about what that is in a moment, but it's a prescription drug. As a man pipes out, he's like, I have a legal prescription. And Supergirl's like, yeah, that's very nice. And we learned that this is actually just red kryptonite. Kryptonite is not very, I want to say, rare. There's a whole issue of Batman and Superman going around the Earth just taking green kryptonite. Kryptonite's pretty much everywhere after the explosion, even at the point where it's synthesized. And so she says, this is red kryptonite encased in dissolvable lead. Most people take it, they get weird visions about transforming into things. Kryptonians take it, the visions come true. And the safety of this is questionable. I mean, you turn into either a horrible monster or your hair grows too long. It's safer than getting eaten by a dragon, though. And so she takes it. And then she becomes this beautiful phoenix thing outside. I am unlike the average farm folk on my plane. I had the fortune to have grown up lacking ignorance of the world's potential outside of my family's small plot. My benevolent father had seen in the sand wars and traveled deep and wide. At evening's end, as my brothers suffered through their daily wrestlings, father'd load his long ripe and sit me down at the hearthstone. At the sweet smoke twirled and settled, he'd tell me of his far-flung adventuring, and in that way, I learned of the frozen fires of Dinzanir, whose melted droplets would burn to ashes in the grasses below, or of the bladed men who had no ears but had knives for fingers, and ate only as the sun set or rose. Perhaps my favorite was the maiden of Arista. She collected husbands like one might flint sticks, having 431 of them when my last admiral father saw her. I remember fondly, zealously, encourage him to detail me into the backgrounds of each of these heart-captured men. And we see, in the background, the Phoenix Supergirl charge towards the beautiful blue and purple dragon. From those many nights, I was confident that I understood what wonders lay beyond the hills of our homes. On occasion, I would look into the distant horizon, knowing someday I too would travel beyond it and sink away from sight. Being well versed in the mists of the land, whenever that someday arrived and I did seek out my splendor, I fully expected to be unimpressed by the marvels that awaited me. In short, I was a damn fool. Supergirl charges and goes through the dragon's neck, killing it. And we learn more about Ruthie's backstory, is that her father was a soldier and spent many traveling around the cosmos and seeing beautiful things, and Ruthie wanted to do that, believing that her father had told her everything, so she'd seen everything, only to be with Supergirl and see the impossible and something beautiful alongside it. Because we survived that dragon that day, and many other travels in the days to come as we continued our unpalpable quest. And we see both of them just cleaning up. And Ruthie tells us, like, yeah, I'm not going to go over every mission, every travel, just the important ones. But this moment, however, is an essential importance in the understanding of what comes after. It's an important understanding of what Supergirl is. It occurred, of all places, at a rest station with no name. Somewhere that is not significant, showing that Supergirl, deep down, it is kind. It's not really... she's doing this just for glory. She's doing this for anywhere. The common person can be kind. And it began, as most things begin when you're dealing with Supergirl, with a moment of kindness. As Supergirl grabs her and says, "Come here, let me help you," and teaches Ruthie kindness by showing her how to wash her hands. And Ruthie, this means the world to her because we got a little bit of her backstory. She never really was a clean. She smelled awful. In the beginning, she talked about it. She only got a shower the last of 7, which seems like once a month. So to have somebody teach her how to bathe and how to wash her hands just out of the pure kindness, she remembered it and she loved it. And so Supergirl's like, "So how does that feel?" And Ruthie hits her with a truth bomb. "After the tragedy of your planet's destruction, did you too seek to avenge the death of your family?" And Supergirl lurks at her and says, "No, I didn't. I cannot in truth tell you why I asked the question, and I do not feel like hazarding needless guesses. It was on my mind and it was said, and that was enough. All I can give you is her answer, which rings in my elderly ears as clear today as it did in those old times. I read it now on the page, ineptly laying there in ink, and I realize it wasn't her words themselves that marked it as an arresting moment. It was the tone in her voice, which I do not have the ability to recreate, and so must just tell you without the subtlety of the moment. In her response in saying no, I heard a whole life of regret. So Supergirl regrets not avenging her family, watching them die on the planet Krypton. And understandably so. There's nothing that she could do. And so, she just holds on to that. Nothing to do, nothing to really blame it on. Sometimes it's destroyed by Brainiac. She hasn't killed Brainiac. Sometimes it just explodes for its own reason. But yeah, she just sits there with regret, knowing that her family died and she could do nothing. Weeks passed. We took more time at each stop, drained in body and soul as one, often and near the end of our adventurous crossing. After all that time on the festering machine, we were craving to stretch our legs and relieve our nostrils. And then we see again, somebody leans on top of her. And so Ruthie pushes him off. The unfortunate side effect of such lingering with our inability to again secure seats next to one another, resulting in a repeatable situation. And before the man really does anything to Ruthie, Supergirl does a big crack, punches him, and puts him to sleep because he just breaks his nose. I was quite aware of Supergirl's legendary dynamism at that time, but though we had seen companions, those many weeks due to our proximity of the Red Suns, I had yet to witness the actual application of her powers. I marked this, then, as the first time I saw her in full bloom. However, in all honesty, I could not testify that I saw anything exactly, despite my eyes being keenly pointed in the direction of the incident. All I know is that first there was a botheration, then there was Supergirl, and then everything was peaceful again. Having overcome many obstacles, large and small, we finally approached the planet Koron, our terminal stop. Naturally, my thoughts turned to the origin of our expedition. On her 21st birthday, Supergirl and her dog had flown to Koron and the last world with a yellow sun before you entered my particular corner of the universe. Once there, she secured a rather extravagant personal rocket that took them to the rest of the way, knowing what their powers would wane as they traveled. Her plan then was to spend a jaunty day of celebration on my homeworld, board her rocket, return here, and then fly home with her dog. Basically just giving a recap of what's been going on. She met Krem of the Yellow Hills, who had killed my kind-heartedly father in an empty field. Krem does as Krem did. Without honor, he shot her and the dog, hijacked the ship, left her wounded and stranded. For most, I believe what would have been the end of that story. Most would have died in that field, conceding both self and serenity. I consider myself to be as stubborn as a creature as an ever farmed a rock. And I do think that in her place, I would have lain down and accepted the terrors of fate. And so we kind of do get the bridge of the gap from issue 1 to issue 2 of what Supergirl did after getting shot with those arrows and what happened to Krypto. Supergirl did not do that. Instead, bloody and limping, she rose from the grass and went on. Checking on me, seeing if I was wounded in the head, she pulled me over one shoulder and put her pup on the other. She carried us to the pier of that trifling island, put us in a boat, rowed us all the way to the far shore. I remember to my death day the red dripping as she drove the oars back and forth through the crystal waves. Somehow, she got us to a talented mender and insisted we receive care before she did, and she passed out on the stone ground. And that's another thing for Supergirl. She was injured very badly and took care of the other people first. That just tells you how good she is. She came to a week later and was informed that both she and I had recovered to admirable form. However, the pup was very near death. The mender said the time had come to put down the creature. So Krypto, getting put down. Sorry, boys, Krypto's not making it. Is he going to die in the movie? The mender explained that there has been a hunting poison on the arrows. It didn't affect people, but it was killing the animal. He could save the pup, but he would need a hefty sample of the original poison. For each hunter mixed it differently. Krem of the Yellow Hills was nowhere to be found. The animal was lost. Later, I was by her side, and she stroked the sick dog's face. I saw her tears. She said in the chaos of it all, she didn't even remember Krem. She asked me if I could recognize him, even if he's wearing something different. And I said I could. So, basically, Supergirl's main mission is to get that poison from Krem to save Krypto. It needs Ruthye to grab her. With her hand on her pup, she looked at the sky at the infinite distance separating her from the evils of that man. She stayed looking for a moment, then turned her attention to me. She asked if I was still determined to track down the murderer of my dear father and kill him dead. I said I was and always will be. She asked if I was still offering a fine sword for aid in that mission. I again gave indication that this was still the case. And at that point, Supergirl accepted the offer. So that's how they started the mission. Yeah. Thank you for listening, watching, and enjoying. This is another long one. I told you all these are going to be long. Hopefully you like the long ones. I heard somebody commented that they like the long ones that we've been doing. They don't like the new ones. A lot of people like the new ones. We're going to mix match them. People like different things, and I want to appeal to everybody. I love everybody. So thank you for listening, watching, enjoying. Peace out. We'll do more Supergirl.